Hi, everybody. Welcome to our episode this evening. We are going to talk about problems. Like, what's your problem? And so that's how we're going to be exploring it. And no matter what kind of problem you have, whether it's big or little or gigantic, no matter what you're facing, what circumstances and everything else, we want to address how you deal with problems. How do you look at them? Welcome, Betty.
Hi.
So what do you want to say about this problem thing, just as an intro?
Well, problems are wake-up calls. We think problems are something wrong. They're not. There's something very right saying, okay, so what's so? And quite often the urge is to rush around and try to find an answer to the problem. But when we rush around, we're looking outside of ourselves, like there's something out there that can solve my problem. No. When you depend on something outside of your consciousness, outside of your mind, your ability to be, you are magnifying for yourself something not agreeable to yourself.
Right. So we're going to be exploring this in more depth. Again, we are brought to you by the Institute of Metaphysical Science. You can go to our website at scientificmetaphysics.org and check out what other events and things we have going on that you might want to participate in, or any of our materials that you might want to acquire. So that is where we are, and we look forward to having you visit. And so right now, as we dive into problems, I mean, it could be said that at the human belief level, maybe I'm just too close to my problems. They just look too momentous. And what's a strategy to what makes them seem a little bit more manageable?
Well, they're wake-up calls. They get your attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when I feel like I'm overwhelmed with them, I don't feel like I'm very effective in the face of them sometimes.
Well, that's individual, isn't it? When a problem comes up and you find yourself saying, oh dear, the human temptation is to look around frantically, find something that you know someone has said alleviates that, and try it. And then sometimes you discover, oh, that feels better. Okay. But pretty soon it comes back again and again and again. And what you begin to realize is that every time it comes back, it's a little worse than it was before. Whenever we look beyond our own ability to be, to solve a problem, it's going to give us a problem bigger and bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm. And what puts problems into perspective then?
What puts problems into perspective is seeing, if you're a student of metaphysics, you begin to see that problems that occur for you are your demand to step up beyond where you're standing right now. There's a new opening to explore. Mm-hmm. And it's an attention getter saying, hey, wake up. What's up now? And when you look to who am I being, and you acknowledge what's going on that has you be, you find yourself at a whole new level of mm-hmm. self-discovery. You find yourself with greater capacity to be free and whole and joyous beyond what you were able to do before.
Right. So one of the things that I've found is effective is I've just got to stop. I've got to just kind of take a deep breath and stop being a reaction machine. If I can stop being a reaction to the things that are showing up, I can start to see beyond the deep crevices of the problem because I'm so up close and personal with it. So that's call it a technique. But I feel like you ask me who I'm being and I'm upset and all wrapped up in an issue. And that's just, I can't even think at that point. So I need to just take a deep breath and say, okay. Yeah. So that's one way that I can see from my own living, that it's hard to ask myself, who are you being? Or it's hard to have anybody ask me, well, who are you being? Because then I just want to flip them the bird. But it's like, because when I'm really wrapped up in it, it's really serious. It's a big deal, right? And so I know there's only one thing going on intellectually, but yet here I am faced with this big, monstrous, hairy problem. And so I find that when I can take a deep breath, when I can distance myself from the problem, give myself a different visibility on it, that it starts to give me somewhere to go where I can actually look and maybe acknowledge, who am I being?
Yep. I gave you a quote from Science and Health that Mary Baker Eddy had that is a good starting point for when a problem confronts you.
Is this the one? You are working out the problem of being in divine metaphysics,
Yep.
and in proportion as you understand the control which mind has over so-called matter, you will be able to demonstrate this control.
Yep.
I couldn't fit it all into one because we reached the limit, but
well, you did pretty well. But that's exactly right. What we're talking about is mostly focused for students of scientific metaphysics, because the thing that the Institute teaches is that every individual, every single one, you see, is the reflection of the God idea, seen the only way he can see himself at that moment. But fundamentally, God in action is all there is to man. So when you understand that, then you really, mind is a synonym for the God idea. When you understand that, then you can mentally, right away, say, hey, what's going on here? Because the control point is mental. All being fundamentally is mental. And I know it looks different, but that's a language appearance. The control panel is actually mind, action, mental.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, when you're dealing with a big problem, and for those of you who are tuned in, go ahead and enter a comment in the comment box, and we'll get them. If you're live, we'll get them. And we can then engage with them or answer them. But what's a big, hairy problem you got going on? Or what's your challenge? What is the way that you deal with problems? How do you use science, scientific metaphysics, to really be that intuitive knowing and understanding that gets you in touch with who you are, such that those problems don't end up becoming, huge or all-encompassing or dominating. So just type in your chat or in your comments and let us know. And what is it like? Talk more about, when there's big, I know people call you all the time, and you're dealing with people that are dealing with all kinds of things in their lives. But what would you say is the single common denominator of those that they're dealing with, that they're failing to see that? And then how do they actually come to seeing it when they're talking with you?
Well, it depends on how self-aware they are. Somebody that's beginning with the study of metaphysics doesn't actually have a full grasp of the mental nature of his own being. They're beginning to explore it, but when something comes up, they still look out all around them and think, oh dear, what am I going to do about this? Let's do that. That worked for Mary or Joe or Henry or my mother or somebody, so I'll try that. And scientific metaphysics says all is infinite mind. So we give you the opportunity anyway to begin to say, wait a minute, if the being that has Betty show up, if that being is the God idea in action, then Betty doesn't really have a vote. What it is a wake-up call saying, be yourself.
Yeah.
And when I be myself, which is the acknowledgement of God action, then I can relax because there isn't any generative thing going on calling itself Betty. There's God being showing up as Betty.
Yep.
If I go to the source, the answer is simple.
Yeah.
It's right there. The God idea is rooted in perfection.
Absolutely. So then who we are is perfection functioning.
Right.
Now, what about this whole notion of willingness? Do you know, like when we are so mired in a problem, sometimes we're arguing for the problem's existence. You don't understand. It's really like this, blah, blah, blah. And it's almost like you're arguing for the existence of the problem to validate that it's there, or, whatever, and defend your own perspective. But what's this whole notion that you have talked about and taught called willingness? Like, what is it that you see in these conversations you have with people, and even with me and with ours, about this whole notion of willingness and the importance of that? Can we discuss that a little bit?
Sure. I have a lot of phone calls that call up and say, there's this problem. And I know that all is infinite mind, but there's this problem. And so I want you to understand that I do know that everything's just fine. But, well, pretty soon I get them to see that everything that they say after that word but tells me all the reasons why they're having the experience of a problem.
Yeah, now let's back that up a little bit. So they're telling you everything, and I know all is infinite mind, but pay attention to the but, because all the stuff that follows it can identify why you're experiencing the situation you're experiencing right then, like how that feels for you. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Okay, keep going. I'm listening.
What the but tells you is what you really think. The other's theory.
Right.
I know what science says. That's all theory. Right. But this is what I really think.
Uh-huh. So then let's talk about willingness. Apply willingness to that. Willingness would then be, if you're willing, it would be your willingness to give up whatever follows the but. Well, and stay with all is infinite mind. I know all is infinite mind. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and it's theory that all is infinite mind until you live it.
Uh-huh.
It's just a good theory.
Yeah.
The thing that when the rubber hits the road is whether I can live that when something looks problematic, when something looks out of control, when something is upsetting or disturbing or painful or unsatisfying or unfulfilling.
Yeah.
When the experience of living shows up as a problem, what it's saying to you is, who are you being, Betty? And I look immediately and say, I don't get to vote. What has Betty show up is God being.
Mm-hmm.
And the look of a problem means that I'm enjoying pretending that Betty lives outside of that and has some vote in how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact of the matter is that God being is all there is, showing up, calling itself Betty. And when Betty sticks her nose in to run the show, all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah. Right. And so being willing to, I think it's a willingness to let go of my judgments, opinions, beliefs, and druthers about how it all looks, and willingness to acknowledge the perfection functioning in all things.
Yep. Am I willing to have God be the generator? The God idea.
Yeah.
The source.
Yeah.
Or do I really want Betty to run it?
Right. It reminds me of the story. It reminds me of this story. And this guy falls off a cliff, and he reaches out and he grabs onto this branch, and he's hanging out over nowhere. Like, so he thinks, right? He's hanging out and he's hanging there and he's praying to God. He's, God, if you're up there, I'll do anything you say. I'll devote my life to you. Whatever you want. And this voice comes in and it says, let go. And he's holding on and he opens his eyes and he says, "Is there anyone else up there?"
Yeah. It's also like the guy in the water
Yeah.
drowning, and he says, "God save me, you know, really save me, help me." And he says, "You know, you and I, we've got an understanding. I know you'll take care of things." So a guy comes along in a boat and he says, "Hey, buddy, you need some help? I can help you." No, no, no. God and I, we have an understanding. I'm fine. Okay, so off he goes. And there are several opportunities for help to come along. And finally, he drowns. And when he gets up to the pearly gates, he says, "You let me down. We had an agreement." And God says, "I sent you 3 opportunities. You turned them all away."
Right. So the whole thing here is about living yourself fully and knowing that all of what you're experiencing in your world is generated for your good, capital G.
Yeah, in a language you can understand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So if it's all in a language you can understand, and that's always only the way it's delivered, it's for your own self-discovering that you've got that to deal with, that you've got that showing up. Would you agree with that statement? Okay. All right, cool. And then we have a quote from Science and Health. Starting from a higher standpoint, one rises spontaneously, even as light emits light without effort. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. So talk to me about that statement and how that relates to what we're exploring.
Well, I had a call just a few minutes ago from somebody who said, "You know, I think I have gout." So he says, "I went to the hospital and I got some help in that. So now I have this stuff I take for pain and I'm fine." And I said, "So you're calling about what?" He said, "Well, I shouldn't have gout." And I said, "But you've included it as necessary and you've got it solved. What do you need?" "Well, you know, this pain medication wears off." I said, "Well, you can get some more." "Well, I thought science was about understanding who you are and being able to solve these problems." I said, "It is when you apply the rules."
And
he
what
said,
would be the rule in this case?
"All is infinite mind, and
Mhm.
infinite mind is all-inclusive perfection.
Mm-hmm.
That's the God idea in action.
Mm-hmm.
Constitutes my being. Now, it may show up that I take an aspirin, but it isn't going to be my first go-to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to know who I am, and I know that the answer is there, and whatever it looks like, it'll be fine.
Right.
But if I rely on going to the aspirin for help, or the painkiller, or the operation, or you name it, then I'm going to have an attachment to the way it looked greater than I had before,
Mm-hmm.
more difficult to let go of, and going from one problem to another, because until I can live the fact that I'm claiming that all is infinite mind, I'm going to have challenges all the way along the way.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do a halfway job with metaphysics. It's like doing a halfway job with mathematics. You can't say 2 and 2 is 4, but all the rest of those problems, 2 and 2 is 5.
Right. Right.
But when I solve with 2 and 2 is 4.
Right.
You can't do that.
Right. You can't say all is infinite mind except that part over there that I don't like.
Yeah.
Because now you don't have all.
That's right.
And you're splitting it all out. So yeah, I get that.
The integrity of all.
Right. Now there's this other quote, "Man is harmonious when governed by soul."
Yeah. Well, soul is a synonym
Yep.
for God, for the God idea.
Yeah.
Soul, spirit, truth, love, life.
Well, it's when you
mind.
allow, when you're willing to have your world show up and you're clear about what constitutes who you
Then
are.
you're governed by the God
Yeah,
idea. Constitutes.
exactly. Now it's harmonious is what you're seeing.
Yep.
Is harmony, and your experience can be of harmony as well.
Right on.
Okay. All right. Well, here's one from Bicknell Young. Let's tackle this one. So Bicknell Young in Christian Science Re-Explored says, being is infinity, freedom, harmony, and boundless bliss. Be, and by being, heal the sick.
Yep.
Talk about that a little bit.
Well, there are a couple of things about that are really wonderful. He was a teacher in Christian Science, and many of the things he said are right on. Being is the God idea in action.
Mm-hmm.
And it says here is infinity, which means no stopping anywhere. It's infinite. It's ongoing forever in all directions, whole, perfect, complete. Harmony and boundless bliss are descriptive of no division in being. Yeah. There's one thing going on.
Right.
And when you're being yourself, consciously present, that's what describes your life. Harmony and boundless bliss, freedom, no restriction in any direction. On you go.
Right.
So that's why I included it. I thought that was a good kind of a summarizing statement.
Okay. All right. Very good. Now in CSR, there's more. Thinking about being negates being, since thinking and being is one and the same. So there's no aboutness in being. It just is.
See, thinking is the action that constitutes who you are.
Yeah.
Thinking about has two things going on. You here thinking about something else.
Yeah.
When there isn't any something else. There's just one thing going on. And
so there's no me experiencing a problem over there.
No, and there's no you thinking about something over there.
Right.
The thinking about is a language view of human living.
Right.
Your being is the presence of God action.
Right. And so the thinking about is just thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Right on.
Okay, got it. All right, here's another one from Christian Science Re-Explored. You may know that you are on the personal or conceptual level when you regard science as a technique for getting at divine facts. So say more about that. Like, what's that all about?
Well, the rest of that sentence tells you.
Oh, at divine facts, that's right, because I have it. A medicine for what ails you. Science is truth itself as understanding.
That's right.
So starts over here.
Is not, it really is not a technique like an aspirin tablet. Science is the opportunity, the intelligent opportunity, actually, to acknowledge your own source.
Yeah.
Because at that point, since the only thing that can acknowledge God is God itself, you have let go of your personal belief about yourself. I let go of Betty when I'm consciously aware that perfection sources everything about the being calling itself Betty. When I'm present to that, there is no problem to solve.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Now, next one from CSR. Understanding or love is the operation of principle as mind. Its function is healing in the sense of revealing present wholeness.
Yep. You have to recognize that in the science that we're talking about, metaphysical science, perfection is the ground of being. So understanding that is actually the operation of mind itself. And in that understanding, there's nothing that needs to be fixed or changed or managed or organized or healed.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it's function, understanding or love's function is healing in the sense of revealing present wholeness. It's a reveal. It's not an addition. It's not a fixing of. It's a revealing of wholeness, and with whatever circumstances you've got going on. Got it. Okay.
So that what's going on for you looking like a problem is essential as a wake-up call.
Right.
So wake up. Who are you being?
Right.
Yeah.
Wake up. Who you being? Just got to step away from it so that you can actually answer the question. Just saying. All right. So Mind is the Athlete, your book, page 178. When you know who you are, who you seem to be becomes who you are.
Yep.
Unpack that, because, okay, when I know who I am, who I seem to be becomes who I actually am. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
With that?
Well, who I seem to be is who I am. And that's like saying Betty looks out and sees a problem. And she says, oh, well, all is infinite mind. Perfection is present. I don't know why it looks that way.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, who I am, Betty, right then and there, has no problem.
Yeah.
It's gone. It's called healing. It's called an answer, a solution.
Right.
You know. But what's actually happened is I've stopped being the fixer of the problem and started being present as the reflected God being.
Yeah.
And there's no problem.
Yeah. And then you go on to say humanity. You go on to say humanity calls this shift in perception healing.
Yeah.
So then all of us, when you're with it and things happen in an instant, right now, right now, right now, right now, right now.
Yep.
And we think there's that continuity, and it's really new in each moment, new.
That's right.
And that's the only thing that would allow for what we call miracle.
Yep.
And all it is getting who you are.
Yep.
And we call it healing because at the human level, it looks like that.
Yeah.
It can look like that.
Yep. It's a perceptive thing. Healing actually is only a shift, a revealing, because perfection is uninterruptible. It's invariable. It's ever present.
Right.
And it's all powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. I like the word revealing because I think what it speaks to is it's always present. And sometimes you just you can't see it.
Yep.
And when you acknowledge it and you acknowledge, then it's there and you get the full power of what the God idea is constituting.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. And you walk on free as a breeze.
Yep. Okay. So here's another one from your book, Mind is the Athlete. This practice poses a constant challenge to the survival of the ego image, the personal self-sense as a dominant factor in individual living. This ongoing challenge occurs in the language of problems.
Yep.
So say a little bit more about that.
We've been talking about that the whole time.
The whole time. So it's just another way of saying it.
Yep.
Okay, then we'll move on to this one from page 181 of your book. When concepts, seen, heard, and felt views have no value as information and fail to elicit a response, they disappear. So you don't get hooked by it. It can just go away.
That's right. It has no staying power anyway.
Right. Well, you could then say we give it all the staying power it has.
That's right.
And in that way, you're always present to your power, whether you like the result or not.
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right. And then this one, which is from your book, I can only know what my perception allows. I live all the stuff of my life in terms of my own perception.
Yeah, and that's true of every one of us.
Yeah.
We live as we are, not as it is. That's why revealing is the answer rather than a change.
Right.
The
So-
ever-present perfection that has me be is
Yeah.
invariable. It's
Right.
ever-present. It's all-powerful. So when I can be in touch with who I am, there is no problem.
Yeah. So be willing,
And acknowledge the facts.
acknowledge the facts, and the all, the infinite wholeness will be revealed, or is there.
Is the freedom that you
Is
were
the freedom.
into. Yeah, the thing that is important, I think, for a lot of people is to realize that you don't have a problem present in your life that you are not sufficient to handle. You
Mhm.
have in your life demands or wake-up calls that you are entirely capable and ready to handle. Your willingness to handle it is something else.
Right. So we have a question from Melinda who
Yeah.
said, please explain again in what way a pill or operation creates an attachment.
Well, if you have, I don't know, if you have a sore finger and somebody says to you, well, take this aspirin, it'll take care of that. You'll take the aspirin and the finger will feel better. And you'll say, oh, thanks, that was great. Next time you bang your finger, you'll say, oh, where's the aspirin? You are attached to what you perceived as an answer. And you're going to use it until it fails you. And then you'll be up the creek saying, what happened? What happened?
Right. So the answer really is, I can only know what my perception allows.
Yep.
And I live all the stuff of my life in terms of my own perception.
Yep. Thanks, Melinda. That was a great question.
Yep. And she replied, got it. So awesome. All right. And with that, that concludes our episode for this week. And we will be back next week at 5 o'clock Pacific, 7 p.m. Central to do this all over again with a whole new topic. So if you have anything you really want to hear, let us know. If you want us to talk about it, we will. Otherwise, we just keep making it up. So I'll talk to you. We'll see you next week.
Thanks.